Hello and thank you for joining. You're watching OBN Horn of Africa. This is weekly program, special edition, and I'm your host, Fantaun Belete. In this edition, we're going to talk about national dialogue with my special guest, Dr. Yonas Adaye, Commissioner of the National Dialogue Commission. Till the end of our program, stay with us. Doctor, very warm welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Great. When do countries hold the national dialogue and what factors are forcing them to do that?
I think that is a fundamental question, very important. When do countries hold a national dialogue? Number one, when the very survival of the state is in question. Number two, when there is no trust between the state and the society. Number three, when there is again lack of credible governance system, when some people take the rule, the law onto their hands, and when things don't function normally, and when the social contract fails to hold, then these necessitate a national dialogue in any country, because national dialogues most of the time address fundamental questions or structural problems why countries' survival come to question, why people lose trust in their very government or state. And when the trust between the state and the society are loosened, and when people stop almost paying tax, and when there are ungovernable space being created, when alternative security providers emerge, that is a time to hold national dialogue so as to deal with these social upheavals and social crises, so as to bring them back to a normal order. So that is a fundamental assumption we have in dialogue research, in peace research, and at the same time from international experience that we have been time and again reading and writing about.
Thank you. Ethiopia is working on organizing national dialogue. For Ethiopia, is it necessary to conduct this national dialogue right now?
I think my answer is an affirmative, simply yes. As you can see, you can time and again, irrespective of Ethiopian respective governments trying hard to stabilize the country, to make the country developed and compete with the rest of the world, still conflicts recur, come back again. It's just like Sisyphus syndrome in Greek mythology. In Greek mythology, Sisyphus was a very insidious god, and he happened to trespass what has been given by the greater god, and because he was committing such crimes, then he was cursed to push a bowl of a stone to the top of a mountain, and that bowl of stone would roll back, then he had to push, then the stone comes back, then he had to push. It just looks like Ethiopia's situation. When you see Ethiopia starts during Haile Selassie, for instance, modernization, education system, taking off, back again to conflict, and then the military government came. And when the military government started to stabilize the country, then the country went into another abyss of conflict. Then you had EPRDF coming with this different political dispensation. And then when EPRDF started, again, because it couldn't maintain those age-old questions, even though it started to address those nationalities questions, identity questions, land to the tiller questions, many others which tried by during the military government. Again, it couldn't respond. It couldn't address the basic structural questions. Then it went back, it fell, and as they apologized publicly, particularly during the EPRDF final days, as Ato Hailemariam was apologizing that they couldn't, therefore he voluntarily had to step down, and then we had a new dispensation, a new social contract. So now, during the new social contract, we can also see here and there conflicts and violence. So the best way for us is, which has never been tried by either during imperial time or the military time or EPRDF time, and that is establishing a national dialogue commission and then going down to the people, talking to the people, to listen to the people from the grassroots level upwards. What really are the fundamental problems for our age-old problems and conflicts and violence and war? Then based on that indigenous knowledge, coming to lasting peace seems to be the right starting point. So that's why I really feel that there is a real need in Ethiopia today that there must be an inclusive national dialogue. And so it is there, as was established as it was already established in 2022. In February. So that is, to be honest, there was a real need, and there was here and there instabilities. So as to address these instabilities fundamentally, then you need national dialogue.
As you have been saying, a national dialogue commission was established to run the dialogue. What are the major tasks of the commission, and what has it achieved so far?
The fundamental functions of the National Dialogue Commission, I would summarize them in 3 points. Number one, building national consensus. Number two, entrenching trust between the states and society, and trust between or among communities. And the third one is building a culture of dialogue, culture of peace in this country. So these are sacred functions of the National Dialogue Commission. And what have you done so far? What are your success stories, if you say? We started off with the strategic plan, how to reach out to the people, how to go about. So our strategic plans, again, divided into 3. So the first one is bottom up, listening to the people, collecting data from them, particularly listening to them and understanding their wisdom regarding conflict resolution, regarding where win-win possibilities can emerge. And then number 2, top-down, listening to our political leaders, our opposition party leaders, our ruling party leaders, and of course, different intellectuals, top-down. And the third one is lateral, from sides. These are media like yours, and of course, research institutions such as my own, Addis Ababa University, and of course many others. So these 3 are taken as strategies of gathering agenda which can possibly display the fundamental causes of conflict in Ethiopia today and possibly pave the way for stable, sustainable peace in the country. So what have we achieved so far then? We have gone across Ethiopia and we established the bridge between the Commission and those regions. And then we also conducted the first round of discussions. And there we have to make selection of participants at regional level so as to conduct national dialogue at regional level. And that's been successfully completed in about 6-7 regions of Ethiopia, including Addis Ababa, which we completed just last week. And of course, there are remaining parts such as Oromia and Amhara, Afar and Somali. We also, and Tigray, will definitely reach out, God willing, inshallah, as well. And towards the mid of this year, we are planning to conduct overall national dialogue. So yes, we have these achievements, and yes, there are, again, goals to be achieved.
Ethiopian government commits itself to create a diverse and inclusive national dialogue commission with 11 commissioners. However, some are skeptical about the impartiality of the commission. What is your view on this?
Okay. the word impartiality is always relative. Relative in a sense. This is just like neutrality or independence. So independence, every country needs the other country. They can't be fully independent of their own. They like to depend on others. So interdependence. The same is true with impartiality, for instance. You can work with political party members. You have to work with the government as well. You have to also work with international community. Some people, for instance, having learned a lesson from Yemen particularly, saying that you have to always focus on the local ownership and do not allow foreign interference in your project. But we say peace is indivisible. Ethiopia's peace is a piece of the world. So in that case, we work with other countries as well. And the same is true with impartiality of the commission members as well as the commission itself. It really is impartial in a sense. It doesn't side with one ethnic group or one political party or one ideological outlook. It works with all. That's why it is inclusive and not it is not partial to anyone. It's inclusive, it is impartial. It doesn't side with anyone. So that makes it independent and inclusive and impartial as well.
What should be done to ensure ownership and make this dialogue fully an Ethiopian process, not an external imposition?
That is a tricky question and very interesting question at the same time. What should be done so as to make it fully locally run, locally managed, locally owned? Correct. So I think the first and foremost thing to be done is people's participation, engagement. All parties, irrespective of their differences in outlook or ideology, and agreement or disagreement with the ruling party or government, focusing on bigger picture, the survival of the country, Ethiopia, building sustainable peace, and contributing Ethiopia's share to the whole world, including, of course, the Horn of Africa and Africa at large. So to make sure that it is run by the Ethiopians, it is Ethiopian problems by Ethiopian solution, then basing on indigenous knowledge, listening to the wisdom of Gada system, listening to Shimgilina in Amhara region, listening to another extremely interesting areas in Sidama or in Somali or in Afar or in Walaita or in Beni Shangul Gumuz or in Gambela. Then when you have this and the rest of Ethiopia, from Tigray for instance, you really have excellent age-old mechanism of living together. So listening to the wisdom that's been accumulated for ages, first and foremost. That's one way of really showing that it is truly locally owned, that Ethiopia can solve its own problem, it can handle. So the entire project is handled by Ethiopians. It's not masterminded and funded from outside, as we saw in some other areas where it ended in fiasco, in complete failure, because he who pays the piper chooses the hymn, they say. So as to avoid that, Ethiopians should own their, and this can be definitely scaled by that. Secondly, financing, the financing aspect. We are mostly financed by the Ethiopian state, and because it is an Ethiopian project. That's very important. Thirdly, the very ideas, particularly religious leaders, elders, their prayers, their spiritual contributions, they're monitoring it. We have advisory committee composed of about 30 elderly, ministers, former diplomats, scholars who are advising the National Dialogue Commission itself. So these are really a sign of ownership. Again, I like to underline, ownership does not mean we are an island in the world. We also cooperate with others. As African saying goes, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go fast. If you want to go far, go together. Ethiopian national dialogue wants to go fast and far, and therefore alone by Ethiopian, and together with others, with our partners. So we have this double-pronged achievement, I can possibly say. So this is our underlying assumption, and that is the way you can prove that it is locally led, locally owned.
Thank you. By whom should the agenda for the national dialogue be set, and will indigenous practice of conflict resolution be playing any part for the national dialogue?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I wish you could possibly watch some of documentaries we organized from across Ethiopia as we entered into discussions. So far we conducted about with 70,000 Ethiopians the very discussions as a whole so far, and we are looking forward to have more next. So before we start any dialogue, we invite religious leaders and elders to give us their blessings. The first one, that is the ritual. It is this that holds us together like a glue. And that fundamental blessing, that fundamental element or ingredient of blessing and agreeing, the spirit, the flesh, and the soul agreeing together, then the environment and human being agreeing together, then our dialogue also holds. That is the measurement of it. And secondly, the sitting arrangement itself is most of the time circular because almost around the world, most dialogues are held in a circle. That means in circle you come together. Circular means almost perfection, seeing each other, solidarity. No one is, bigger, greater, higher than the other. They're all equally sitting together in solidarity. Then you can see that circle, which is indigenous knowledge, which really contributes to each person looking at each other's eyes. And we have this, the Amharic saying, the cognition, understanding of things is through eyes, they say. And the Shakespearean saying of these eyes, your eyes mirror your soul, as Anthony and Cleopatra were speaking in their dramas. So that eye contact is extremely important. Listening to each other, respecting. These come from both indigenous knowledge and knowledge, again, modern research from dialogue as well. So we've been using these as inputs in conjunction, in discussion with elders, with chiefs, clan chiefs, with religious leaders as well, as you have mentioned. So indigenous knowledge is even a guarantee for us that it is owned by the local Ethiopian people. It is not from the west or from the east, but it is the center from Ethiopia.
All right. Some people say that this national dialogue should not be perceived as an end goal. Rather, it is part of a larger transitional roadmap. What does this mean?
I think they have some grain of truth in what they are saying. Dialogue, most of the time, is a mechanism. It is a way. It is a strategy to reach the end goal. The end goal is strong Ethiopia, sustainable peace, strong national identity, strong country with say, economic strengths you can talk about, governance, sustainability. So to that, this national dialogue itself is a way to that end, to reconciliation, to the one we talked about just from the very beginning, national consensus, reaching national consensus, building trust between states and society. Again, trust between different communities and among communities. And these are the ends. To that end, the goal, the way to go there is dialogue, national dialogue. So most of the time, national dialogue is taken as a mechanism, as a process, rather than the end product. It is almost similar to the definition of peace. There is no way to peace. Peace is the way we say. So dialogue itself is a way to more higher agenda, such as we said, sovereignty, independence of the country, sustainable peace and sustainable, of course, nation building and state building as well.
Thank you. Can we say that this national dialogue provides a key opportunity to create a new political culture in Ethiopia?
You said it very well, honestly speaking. It is an excellent opportunity to make peace work. That is, bringing peace by peaceful means rather than peace by war, peace by hatred, peace by killing each other. So peace by peaceful means, that is through national dialogue. Why do we say that? For three reasons. Number one, it is a win-win game. In dialogue, you don't see any one person winning and then the other one losing. No, both of them are to win. Number two, it is a way of looking for truths, the buried truths. Why are we in conflict? Then they dig deeper. This happened. We're not talking about theories. This happened in South Africa. This happened in, of course, Tunisia. And, of course, in Kenya here, in Rwanda. In Rwanda, truths, I killed your brother. Just crying in tears. Then kneeling on the knee of the other, and then forgive me. This is me who did this. Forgive me. Now the truth comes out. Both of them are weeping in tears. Then they say, well, we can't bring our brother back, so as of today, we reconcile with each other. They hug each other, shake hands with each other. That truth comes out through dialogue. So as the good book says, you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. So they were set free. The third one, it becomes a lesson for others to learn. So you are here, as you rightly mentioned, it's a golden opportunity to build a culture of peace, a culture of dialogue, discussing, speaking, conversation, rather than fighting and killing, brothers killing each other. So that is to be done away with. So we have to say enough is enough. The best way out is dialogue, dialogue, and dialogue.